Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather, 7th day of January, 1 week into the new year now, 2021. And I'm Dave, finally got his haircut, Percy. I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up first here, we've got winter weather advisory out for the northern panhandle there, specifically for the Klondike Highway near White Pass and the Haines Highway, mostly west of Haines, and looking for 4 to 6 inches of snow total. And the advisory is out until midnight, at which time probably a warm up to be a little too warm for an additional snowfall. But looking for 4 to 6 inches with the heaviest amounts west of Haines, and again along the Klondike Highway near White Pass. To the south, mostly looking at precipitation in the form of rain, especially at sea level. And for the remainder of the state, no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere. Northern interior, the Arctic coast, also out west, although got some storm force winds coming into the western and eventually central Aleutians during the day tomorrow, with next storm system pushing in from the northwest Pacific. Otherwise, you can see low pressure rather vividly there in the Gulf of Alaska, pulling westward toward Kodiak Island, and then the band of clouds, frontal boundary kind of breaking up, or it is breaking up as it pushes into the interior areas along the North Gulf Coast. Brought some pretty gusty winds along the North Gulf Coast today, earlier on, starting to come down now with the front moving in and weakening. But Middleton Island had a peak wind gust of, let's see, 60 miles per hour, so good gales out there. And in higher elevations of southern Alaska, for example, Arctic Valley had a gust of 65 miles an hour at about they're about at 1 a.m. and they're about at the 3,600 foot level. So that's definitely the higher elevations you always hear about for the winds, especially with south central Alaska. And that's kind of the exception. Otherwise, lighter winds there along the North Gulf Coast. Middleton Island, definitely the stronger wind gust. And winds gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour along the north coast of the Panhandle. Yakutat gust 45 miles an hour. And Cape Decision, though, on the more southern coast of the southeast Panhandle, a normally windier area, they had a gust of 57 miles per hour. Rainfall amounts, not all that impressive. 12-hour amounts range from about 4/10 of an inch at Gustavus and Klawock. Also, Kodiak Island had about 4/10 of an inch as well. Kenai Lake in the peninsula picked up 3/10 of an inch of rain. Homer, Seldovia, Port Graham had about 2/10 of an inch of precipitation. I think I got those right. Homer, Seldovia, and Port Graham. That is correct. And then a little bit heavier amounts there across the inlet in toward Kamishak Bay due to the upslope effect of the terrain there, but not too much heavier. And otherwise, mild conditions, temperatures rising above freezing into across the Kenai Peninsula into south central Alaska today, Turnagain Arm, not so much in the Anchorage area. But just the opposite, northwest winds there pulling colder air down on the west side of the low pressure area from the southwest interior. And you can kind of tell sweeping in across Bristol Bay there in the Alaska Peninsula, winds anywhere from 25 gusts 40 miles an hour with colder temperatures. And a little bit of light snow condition with the overwater trajectory of the colder air there coming off the southwest coast before it makes landfall along the Alaska Peninsula. But amounts quite light. We have a weak system there west of the Pribilof Islands, bringing some snow showers into the Adak-Atka area. And also for the Pribilofs, that'll continue through tonight. Generally cloudy up over the northern Bering Sea, with cold air continuing to seep southward there from the Russian Far East and through the Bering Strait. And areas of light snow, some areas got picked up an inch over the western interior, associated with upper level trough, that moisture rotating westward, colliding with the colder air. And kind of a widespread area of light snow falling, but nothing really heavy. Again, generally an inch, maybe a little more in some areas. Other areas had less than that to nothing at all. And rolling that up again, can't really see it, but the Cirrus Shield, southwest of the Queen Charlotte Islands, that's associated with the next storm that's moving northward quite rapidly. And you can actually see it there southwest of the Queen Charlotte Islands, 993 millibars. But the original front brought the stronger winds today and the rain to the North Gulf Coast, actually a little farther north than what I have it shown here currently at the present time. Otherwise, not much precipitation making it too far inland. Kind of breezy, winds kicking up through the passes of the eastern Alaska Range, Delta Junction, for example, east-southeast gusts 30-35 miles an hour. And areas of light snow there along the trough axis in the western interior. Nothing, as I mentioned, too terribly heavy. That extends all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula. Weak low, Bering Sea, another one way farther to the west there, kicking off some shower activity. And fair over the eastern interior. And for tonight, again, that snow advisory until midnight for the Klondike Highway near White Pass and the Haines Highway east of Haines, 4 to 6 inches of snow possible. And otherwise, we're looking at the next system as it rolls up west of the Queen Charlotte. They're going to get clobbered with a wind. They'll see the heaviest wind and rain for sure, probably looking at 60 to 80 mile an hour wind gusts there, but definitely maybe storm force winds coming up to off the south coast of the Panhandle. Dixon End getting quite windy. Rain increasing, becoming heavy at times later tonight, and persisting. That front washes out along the North Gulf Coast there. A lot of leftover moisture keeps it wet into the northern Panhandle as well, and kind of a mixture of precipitation into the areas east and south of the Alaska Range, maybe the Copper River Basin. Really not a good pattern for much in the way of snowfall there, and definitely not over the eastern interior. The winds coming off the Alaska Range. But back to the west, northerly winds diminish, weak low, periods of snow or light snow for the Pribilof Islands, light winds. Bering Sea looking pretty calm there, with just a weak trough for Adak and Atka. And then on the edge of the chart, late tonight, the next storm that's going to spread storm force. In fact, you may actually have gale force winds there shimmying out too late tonight, but definitely be spreading gales and storm force winds into the western and then central Aleutians tomorrow afternoon as that low center pulls up to just south of the western Aleutians, and then the tighter gradient in advance of the front there. That's where the storm force winds will be. And otherwise, the old low there near the Pribilofs just washes out into a weak trough, keeping some scattered rain or snow shower activities. Winds become more southerly or southeasterly, warming up. So whatever falls of snow will be trending toward more of a light rain condition there. Otherwise, high pressure, weak high pressure along the southwest coast may result in some clearing, definitely light winds up to the Seward Peninsula. And then so a couple of troughs in the interior there could result in some isolated snow showers, areas of fog possible, eastern interior as well as eastern Arctic coast. And southerly flow keeps it wet and unsettled and mild for the North Gulf Coast as well as the Panhandle, but not as that storm system moves through. And actually that low center pulls back to the west quite rapidly tomorrow afternoon toward the Barren Islands, weakens to 991 millibars. Excuse me. And then another system cranks up, a very tight gradient. The low center is still well to the southwest of the south of the Gulf of Alaska, but we've got storm force winds coming up all along the North Gulf Coast, eastern North Gulf Coast, right on down the Panhandle in the afternoon. All have 50-knot winds in the forecast, increasing rain, gradually spreading inland, but the winds definitely the big story in the forecast there coming up for the marine areas. Mixture of precipitation, increasing wind also, Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, wind, rain, heavy at times. And interior, though, pretty nice and pretty stormy there. Easterly winds on the brisk side over the central Bering Sea, turning northwest, gale force northwesterlies for the western Aleutians. Lows for tonight, below zero, west and north of the Alaska Range, anywhere from 5 to 20, 25 below possibly. Single numbers, Copper River Basin, 20s, lower 30s, south central Alaska, mid-30s to near 40 for the Panhandle, mid-20s Pribilofs, teens and 20s for the Aleutians. And highs tomorrow go from 3 below to 3 above for Savunga, and up into the lower to upper teens there for the east upper Tanana Valley, near 20 for Eagle, and lower to mid-30s south central Alaska, especially Kachemak Bay. Lower 40s for the Panhandle, cooler to the north, and 20s, lower 30s, Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And for the lows the following morning, again, north and west of the Alaska Range, that's where you'll find the below zero readings. Otherwise, not too bad. 20s, for Kenai Peninsula, south central Alaska. Teens to lower 20s for the Copper River Basin, lower 30s along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Mid-20s, Kodiak Island, some colder air sneaking back in. You can see zero forecast for Dillingham and King Salmon. And then mid to upper 20s for the Alaska Peninsula, upper 20s northern Panhandle, and upper 30s out to the south and along the coast, lower 30s central Aleutians. Highs Saturday afternoon shaping up like this, a little above zero there over the eastern interior, north of the Alaska Range. Call it 9 for Fairbanks, but staying below zero, North Slope, a little below, not too bad for this time of year, down the west coast. Upper mid-20s to mid-30s, south central Alaska, of course, warmest along the coastline. And for the Panhandle, mid-40s now showing up along the central and south coast, lower 30s up toward Skagway, Haines area, near 40 North Gulf Coast. Upper 30s for the Aleutians, mid-30s for the Pribilofs, and just 3 degrees above zero for St. Lawrence Islands, Luvunga, and Gamble, with 10 for Fairbanks.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic tomorrow morning. Narrow band of IFR extending up from a more widespread area there. Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, Aleutian Range into southern Cook Inlet, maybe southern Kuskokwim Valley, but extends northward through the west there, right across the Selawik, say western Brooks Range on up to the western Arctic coast. But VFR there from the eastern Beaufort Sea coast across the central eastern North Slope, Brooks Range right in the central interior. IFR, Prince William Sound, working northward and trying to push northwestward, but the mountainous terrain there, south central Alaska, blocking it from the eastern Kenai Peninsula, northern Cook Inlet into the valley. But all the North Gulf Coast, pretty much IFR, and then kind of marginal right along the coastline of the Panhandle, and marginal out over the Bering Sea for the most part with some scattered areas of VFR. And then on the edge you can see the IFR band with the next system that pushes right up into the afternoon all the way over to Atka Island. And VFR breaks out over the Pribilofs and maybe to the False Pass area, Akun Island, but marginal VFR mainly for the Alaska Peninsula. But not too bad, just grazing the west side or southwest side of Nunivak Island. VFR St. Lawrence Island, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta to Togiak Bay and Dillingham, VFR all the way down to, say, Pilot Point or so, and Chignik. Kodiak Island, marginal VFR into central Cook Inlet, now up and along the western Cook Inlet to the Alaska Range, and then back down into Turnagain Arm, Madanuska Valley, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, IFR. And some lower stuff causing some IFR there along and north of the Yukon River there in the Flats area. And otherwise, eastern interior, not too bad. IFR, western Arctic coast. And the Panhandle, mostly marginal with some IFR lingering, Lynx Canal, Glacier Bay, and also over toward Hyder and Stewart. Gulf of Alaska, pretty well. All marginal VFR with some IFR there in the west, which actually comes across to Kachemak Bay. And then for the morning Saturday, again from about Fognak Island up across Kamishak, Kachemak Bay, southern Kenai Peninsula, Resurrection Bay, Prince William Sound, all IFR, northern Cook Inlet marginal, Madanuska Valley marginal, northern northeastern Copper River Basin VFR, that extends up over the upper Kanawha Valley 40 Mile country to well north of Eagle. And then a band of IFR along and just south of the Brooks Range there through the northern Kobuk, or northern Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley on down in toward Buckland, and Kotzebue. Marginal, Kivalina, VFR, IFR possible southwest of Point Lay, otherwise marginal for the North Gulf or the Arctic coast and North Slope. IFR there, southern Bering Sea, most of the Aleutians, but still VFR along the southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island. Moving on to Saturday afternoon. IFR, central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and then really the northern interior, their northern half or so, areas of VFR, marginal VFR, and scattered IFR up in that area, and then southwest Bristol Bay, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Norton Sound, southern Seward Peninsula, and through the central interior, mostly VFR, and then south and east of the Alaska Range, IFR with marginal VFR, pretty much the rule there, from Kodiak Island, Gulf of Alaska, North Gulf Coast, to almost the Panhandle, where it's mostly marginal VFR, and then actually VFR over toward the border, Copper River Basin, and eastern interior, good VFR. Passes Anatuvik, Friday, VFR, same forecast for Adigan tomorrow, looking pretty good, VFR the entire day, both approaches. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR. IFR rainy, IFR southern approach for windy, marginal through the pass out toward the north, and again, lowest conditions, southern entrance of Isabel as well. And Ventasta, possible marginal VFR south entrance, otherwise not too bad. Tanita, IFR with marginal conditions on the west side. And Portage, IFR. Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels 2,000 feet across the Panhandle, but at the surface, North Gulf Coast, dropping south of the Alaska Peninsula there, that push of colder air, back up to north of the central Aleutians, but just south of the Pribilofs. Icing front coming in out there is, into the Aleutians tomorrow brings a band of considerable moderate rime icing in toward mostly Adak and eventually Atka. And then areas of considerable moderate rime or mixed icing for the North Gulf Coast. Heaviest safe from Cape Yakataga, Cordova, eastward into the northern panhandle. And just a slight threat there in the western interior with leftover moisture. Jet stream east-south or south-southeast. Southeast 85 off the panhandle turns southerly there over the southeast interior. And that's about it, although we've got stronger jet now. Stream winds into the central Aleutians ahead of that storm. And we got 70 knots southeasterlies for the panhandle, 55 North Gulf Coast, and 60 65 mostly off the coast, results in moderate chop for the southeast coast, central, western Aleutians. Pretty smooth everywhere else.
Happy New Year, stargazers! 2021 is going to be a really fun year for astronomy. And first, this will be a great year to see a lunar eclipse. When the moon passes through the shadow cast by our planet called the umbra, we get a lunar eclipse. And this year we get two. A total eclipse in May and just barely a partial eclipse in November. Plus, in June, there will be an annular solar eclipse visible from the far northeastern US and Canada. Annular eclipses happen when the moon passes between us and the sun, but it's too far away to block the whole star. Not to mention, there are planetary conjunctions, meteor showers, and more and more. And honestly, I might be biased, because I think every year is a fun year for astronomy, but this year, we've got some really amazing stuff going on up there. So that's what's up in 2021. I am Trace, your friend in the stars. I will see you all year for more stargazing tips. Let's all keep looking up.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining me once again is Cindy Preller. She is the Tsunami Program Manager for the National Weather Service in Alaska region. Thanks for joining us again, Cindy.
Thank you, Dave.
We're talking about tsunami awareness and safety here in Alaska especially, and one of the things that has been one of your main focuses is the Tsunami Ready program. What is that, and how do Alaskans find out more?
Awesome. Yeah, Tsunami Ready is a National Weather Service hosted program in partnership with Storm Ready.
Okay.
And it is a program that we conduct with our partners in the state, but it's mostly community driven. So if a community wants to become Tsunami Ready, well, the first thing they need to do is get a hold of me or their local WCM at a weather forecast office or their tsunami team at the state level.
So, and this is something that's a NOAA grant, so there's money available to help encourage the preparedness at the local level there in the city or the village.
Yeah.
What are some of the places that have done this already?
Oh, our oldest Tsunami Ready city is Seward,
Good.
you know, but also Sitka, Homer, Valdez are the, you know, the main players, but we've got several Tsunami Ready communities that I'm very proud of. It takes several years to accomplish this. And so a few of the things that they do is the tsunami risk will be assessed by someone like me or another scientist will help find out, you know, really what their probability is. We'll create an inundation map, an evacuation map. They'll have a mitigation plan. We will set up some partnerships with the schools, make an evacuation shelter, and then they need to practice. But it is the city that owns the program, really. It's up to them. And many cities would like to have sirens, and so we help them get those, and, you know, and they practice. They have to practice.
Sure. So let's say I'm driving into a place like Seward that's tsunami ready. What are some of the things I should look for as maybe a visitor so I know maybe where I need to go or can be more aware of my tsunami risk?
Absolutely. The Tsunami Ready signage is really blatant. It's this, you know, blue and white curling wave sign, and there's different shapes of signs that'll show you if you are in the hazard zone or where the evacuation routes are and when you're out of shelter.
Okay. So this is a multi-step process that helps the residents be more aware of their own risk, but then also prepare for when that risk arrives.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, many communities sound their sirens daily, some sound them weekly, you know, to make sure everybody knows what they mean. And there's often drills. We have an annual drill once a year. We have Tsunami Awareness Preparedness Week, and that's a good time for each community to do some exercising.
Okay. And is this a program that is unique to Alaska?
Absolutely not. It's national.
Okay.
And all over the country, you'll have the same signage, so it's consistent.
Good. So if I'm taking the kids to California, I should be able to see something familiar.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And, you know, some communities hesitate because they think it'll discourage tourism. And so I would like to tell those communities that what they're actually doing is they're encouraging responsibility.
Sure.
The tsunami's going to happen.
Right.
And it's going to hit every coastline. So, you know, it's not about when, it'll be any time. So the fact that they're showing tourists that they are making steps to be prepared for this, I think would encourage people to want to stay there.
Right. And that would be no different than, say, you or I visiting the Midwest, where we know there's going to be really bad thunderstorms and maybe there's a risk for tornadoes. We're aware of that risk when we go there.
Absolutely. If I see a sign for a tornado shelter, I'm going to remember that.
Right. Okay. All right. So we're just doing a better job of being more prepared with something that's bound to happen again.
I hope so.
Okay. Very good. Where can people go again to learn more about the Tsunami Ready program here in Alaska?
Well, one, there's a Tsunami Ready website. So, you know, just Tsunami Ready,
Google
and that'll
Tsunami
get you
Ready.
there.
Okay.
And then probably the best person for people to contact is their warning coordination meteorologist at their local weather forecast office, which is Anchorage or Juneau, most likely.
Okay. All right. So most of the folks along the Bering Sea coast, again, are not at a huge risk for tsunamis.
No, they don't need to worry about it.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. But always learning to be prepared no matter where you are in Alaska, no matter what the risk, always a good step. And tsunami is a major player in that, as we well know from events like 1964.
Alaskans are resilient. I really believe in them.
Very good, very good. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for joining us again, and please make an effort to learn more about the Tsunami Ready program in your village and town if you haven't already. We'll be back with Cindy again next time to talk more about the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska. We actually have a group of geologists working for the National Weather Service, so scratch your head on that one and we'll join you next time. See you next time on Alaska Weather Packs.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hi everyone, this is meteorologist Joel Curtis with your marine weather. Starting out with the sea ice edge, the wind is pushing the ice toward the south and southwest. Any leads that open up behind this will refreeze. Also, the ice edge is currently 65 miles northeast of St. Matthew Island. For Friday's marine forecast for southeast, on the outside waters, 25 to 30 knots, seas all the way up to 21 feet. On the inside, 20 to 30 knots, with some gusts of 35 out of some passes, and seas all the way up to 9 feet. Then on Saturday's marine forecast, we've got storm force 50 on the outside waters, seas up to 29 feet, and then on the inside waters, ranging from 20 to 35 knots, and seas 9 feet in Clarence Strait. For South Central on Friday, we've got 25 down to 15 knots on the outside waters, seas all the way up to 17 feet. And then for Prince William Sound, easterlies 25 knots, seas 4 feet. For Cook Inlet, 20 to 25 knots, and maximum seas at 8 feet. And then for Saturday, we've got a whole gale, 45 knots, seas all the way up to 31 feet. Easterlies 30 knots in Prince William Sound, seas 7 feet. And then northeasterlies in Cook Inlet up to 40 knots and seas up to 11 feet. For the peninsula and Kodiak Island, some offshore flow, 25 to 30 knots, seas up to 12 feet or so. On the Bering Sea side, 25 knots and seas up to 8 feet. And then for Saturday, got a gale force through Shelikof Strait up to 35 knots, seas 10 feet. And on the outside, up to 21 feet off of Kodiak Island. And then tapering off down to 30 knots as you get further toward the southwest. Out of Bristol Bay, northeast 35 knots. And the maximum sea on the Bering Sea side, 11 feet. For the Aleutian Chain, really ramping up on the wind there. Storm force 50 knots. Seas out in the west up to 17 feet. And then as you get further east, tapering off down to 20 knots and seas 6 feet. And then on Saturday, got some really big seas moving in. Seas up to 28 feet on the Pacific side, up to 24 feet on the Bering Sea side. Gale force 35 knots in the western Aleutians and up to 45 knot easterlies as you get in the Bering Sea side off Nikolsky and Unalaska. On the west coast, got some northerlies ramping up 15 to 25 knots. Seas all the way up to 9 feet as you get down to the Pribilofs. And then on Saturday, we've got northeasterlies ranging from 15 and then ramping all the way up to 35 knots as you get out in the Bering and the Pribilofs, and seas up to 15 feet. For the Arctic coast, starting out 20 knots in the far east, and then tapering off to 10, 15 knots or so as you get around the Point Ley area. Into Kotzebue Sound, northwesterlies 25 knots, and through the Bering Strait, north 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And then on Saturday, westerlies 5 to 10 knots or so along the north slope, up to 15 near Kaktovik. And then as you get down toward Cape Lisburn and all the way down to the Bering Strait, 15 to 25 knots, seas in a few 6 feet and a few ice-free waters. Recapping tonight's weather, we've got a couple of low-pressure systems in the Gulf, pretty good pressure gradients and onshore flow with precipitation, and then a pretty good weather system moving into the western Bering Sea. And then on Friday, it looks like we've got our old friend, the low 991 millibars near Kennedy Entrance, onshore flow again with some precipitation along the Gulf Coast, a new weather system coming up into the southern Gulf. And then we look out toward the western Aleutians. We have a storm force 963 millibar system. Looks pretty strong there, and lots of pressure gradient and precipitation going along with that. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you listening, and we sure appreciate your feedback if you can give us some on any of the ice conditions out west or any other weather information. Thanks again, folks.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.